Indian origin, obviously, Mauritian of Indian origin, fake stock. I'm a Mauritian of Indian origin. My name is Utam Ramchurn, or you can pronounce it Utam Ramchurn. I'm actually, at 44, I'm still an emerging artist, I think, because I've only started finding my discourse and my own technique very lately, you know. I've done all kinds of artistic activities in the past. I used to be in an experimental rock band.
Wow.
Where we would improvise performances on stage. We used to add a certain element of theatrics and humor to it. So I've done different types of art. As a practitioner, you can see a microphone in my hand because I'm also
so
working
powerful,
today.
so
There
strong.
I'm working today because for the past 17 years, I've also been reporting on the art scene in Mauritius in various TV programs. The latest one being Les Grandes Lignes, which focuses on artistic events, especially fine art in Mauritius. So, I mean, throughout these 17 years, I used to want to create visually. I did to a certain extent in the privacy of my own home and stuff. I used to draw a lot. I've never been much of a painter, but I'm more of a drawer. I like to draw. I'm a relatively good draftsman.
Cool.
But I've never been much of a painter because I simply don't master color. And very lately, through my experimentations, I've started discovering something that works for me. You can see my painting here is actually made up of various elements that I have photographed and then reworked layer by layer on a free software called GIMP, which is like the open source equivalent of Photoshop. So my discourse, I don't know if you can call it a discourse, but my starting point is taking pictures of very, very basic mundane things that you can find at home while you're doing dishes, you know, the very particular patterns that you get when you're cleaning a plate and the soap just creates patterns in a certain way. I photograph my coffee dregs in my cup because I'm a big drinker of black coffee. And when you drink, at the bottom there's always a dregs that remains, and when you incline it, it always makes a pattern. And what's interesting about those patterns is that they only exist once. As you're doing something, it's just a little part. You know, there's this whole thing about, I don't know how long you've got, but I'm also very fascinated by this idea of what you call it, entropy, which is disorder, that the natural disorder that everything is always pervasive in creation and the world. Things are always being, you know, they're always being tending towards chaos. Human activity is about trying to control that chaos and shaping it in a certain way. But it's also very temporary because everything tends to go back to this primordial chaos. So I situate my practice within this. I capture moments where I can recognize some kind of pattern in something, and I don't control it, but I capture it, and then I choose to work with it and let it inspire me. And then these patterns take a life of their own, and they tell me what they want to be. And through some manipulation, a little patch of coffee becomes a tree, a reflection of...
Look at the process. Wow.
Yeah, Venetian glass. This is actually part of I don't know if you know the elliptical exerciser, that piece of gym equipment.
Wow.
It was reflected against a Venetian blind in my home, and it was reflected onto my television, the black screen of the television, and it was slightly distorted. So I took a picture of it, and then I realized that they actually looked like people, you know, trying to reach for something. So I actually worked on them so that they become little characters trying to reach for something. And in the context of this work, these are like vertical bridges, like ladders, that are helping these people ascend to a higher state of being. That is one interpretation of it. It doesn't have to be the only interpretation of it. I can probably show you, if I have it on me, the building blocks
Beautiful.
of what creates this.
Yeah.
This is the filament of a bulb that, you know, when you reduce your aperture on your camera, you can have the details of the LED filaments, and they are shaped a bit like a flower. So
Let's see.
So
his
the
inspiration.
building blocks of this are very basic things. You can recognize the basic coffee dregs in my coffee cup. That is the basis for the tree. This is a reflection of that gym equipment that was reflected in my screen.
And treadmill.
Yeah, the elliptical machine.
Yeah.
And I just noticed that they looked like, characters trying to reach for something, or maybe someone behind bars, and But I decided to incorporate it in there. There is, I haven't incorporated that one, but this is the particular filament, as you can see. That's what it also looks like a claw. I think someday I might use this as a kind of skeletal structure for some mythical animal. So, as I say, shapes dictate what they want to be. The artist is only some kind of conveyor of what the shape is trying to say. In my opinion, we're just interpreting what we're seeing. Yes. What else? This is a spherical lamp that I was cleaning with some cleaning foam, and as I sprayed the foam over, it naturally formed a particular pattern that reminded me of, the Asian yin and yang and stuff like this. So I just took it because the shape in itself was amazing. And so I work with these things, and I shape them until they become something else. So it's sculpting reality into some kind of new reality, or another dimension of reality that's located in fantasy. So I don't know how much you can actually find.
Yeah, it's just in Georgia O'Keeffe's Flowers, there was a whole new world, and I see Georgia O'Keeffe rebirth as you. It's
Pretty
like
much.
more digitalized, more intellectually, more vocal.
Yeah, but I'm articulating something, but it doesn't have to be. It's perfectly fine if someone doesn't know where this comes from. Simply you come here, if it evokes something in you, then it's fine. Your own reading of it is okay. I've incorporated one interpretation. It doesn't have to be the only one. And this was a complete accident. This is something that remained after when you use stuff like Photoshop or GIMP. When you use the Magic Wand tool, the magic selection tool, and you remove certain elements, there are places where the light is not uniform that leave traces like this. And then I noticed that as I was shaping them, they just accidentally took the shape of this kind of feminine figure. So I kind of said, okay, I'd try to push it to be a bit like a feminine figure. So it kind of also evokes the idea of a feminine image giving birth to something, like a womb of something.
Yeah.
Because very often in many cultures, Egyptian mythology or in Greek mythology, you always talk about creation as, birthing. The sky gave birth to Kronos, the gods. It's always something, some element that gives birth to the gods that give birth to something. So I think the idea of birthing a new world, a new state of being is also present, because I like this imagery.
Yeah.
So
Share some idea about your software. How much
Okay.
you are like, sometime when you are not into something, you produce something else.
Yeah.
So are you very much with your tools, or you allow your tools to get out
No,
of it?
I think the tool is just that right now I'm connecting with this kind of digital tool very much. I like the idea of creating, as I call it, lo-fi creation. Even the original photos for this are like 72 dpi, which is not a lot, but in the end it's converted to 300. But digitally, if you're working with photos, it's not a lot. It's,
And also, if you're willing to capture something like instantaneous, you
Yeah.
must be having all the camera set to have the picture of the highest data.
Exactly.
Like just with your phone. Or
exactly. That's what works for me.
Captures
Whatever
the
you
moment.
have at hand. If this is your phone, if that's what you have, and you see it, then this is the quality of the image again, with the grain, with the imperfection. And the grain and the imperfections are what gives you this. So some people choose to. If I were a graphic artist or if I were a photographer, I would try to avoid this at all costs. But I am using photography as a tool, but I'm not a photographer. I'm using photography as a painter. So
that's why there is a difference between photography and a snapshot.
Exactly.
When you classify snapshot as artwork and photography as a medium to document, then these two sides get totally two ways.
Yes, they can go two different ways. For me, it's just a tool. It's a tool, but it's a tool to record something that has impressed you, something that has awoken some kind of feeling within you. And this is what I'm trying to do, capturing moments that impress me. And then at some point when you have the time, you just put everything together and see what happens. You know, it's a magic. It's a magic alchemy. And I think this is the kind of, I think, yes, this morning, I was downloading stuff from my phone, and I had photographed this towel on my sofa.
Oh wow! So it's a recent creation.
Even this feather, I'll probably
and concrete.
I will probably take a photo.
So guys, it's a kind of art appreciation lecture. Okay, just remember this thing.
There you go. I just
oh my God,
I've got very few battery on this, but there you go. Right. Okay. I'll put the two photos. I mean, this is a towel on my sofa, but the very starting point is by just applying some blurs and accentuating it. You get this element, which is a starting point. I will probably work on it again, but you can kind of notice this kind of face screaming in pain or terror. And it kind of reminded me, I actually wrote on it. There you go. It kind of reminds me, you've probably seen the paintings of Francis Bacon with twisted bodies and twisted faces, etc. And it kind of evoked this feeling.
Somewhere, somehow, Plato's cave story and cave, the Neoplatonic theory.
Yeah, the allegory of the cave and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's also part, I suppose, I am sensitive to those things.
Yeah. So I can feel that sensibility in your work and tangibility of the medium with the conceptual interpretation.
Yes, I think the concept comes later. The starting point is always aesthetic. It's always, I'm a bit, if you want to see, you know the way I am. The other day I was talking to someone about what I do, and I'm saying, I am this kid who's got a pen and he's got a tiny ruler, and he puts the ruler within the pen, he blocks it, and he gets a little airplane. You know, we've all done this as a kid. Just taking two things that don't belong together, we just put them together, and the rest goes on within the imagination. So you're just building, make-believe things, make-believe toys, make-believe worlds out of very basic things.
Yeah.
And this is pretty much what I do. It's my playground,
That's why I consider you as a contemporary artist. You're saying
I don't know where I situate myself.
Yeah, you don't need to even think about it now anymore because your words are very connected to that 21st century tools, 21st century thinking process.
Yes.
So definitely welcome to this world.
Oh, thank you. But I'm a great believer that, the closer you get to this, to this openness of children, the more you can create. Because as children, we are completely open to various things in the world. We react to the world in particular ways, that we are impressed by things, we are impressed by shadows, we're scared of shadows and stuff because the imagination is always trying to interact with the outside world. It's trying to comprehend things, and this is the kind of state that I like to get into when I'm creating. Ismet is one of our foremost contemporary artists.
He is.
I'm glad to count him as a friend. Yes.
So we are right now in Mauritius Art Fair and meeting some of the very, very, very good artists, and even I don't have words. Somewhere, somehow, one side is contemporary artists who's claimed as like a kind of diverse person, and on the other side you can see a very, very good artist. Even I don't have words. When Mauritian used to talk about him, they start even almost, they cry, oh my God, you're talking about the god of, art world. So here we are. I don't know what he's going to say. Maybe he's going to scold me.
I don't have anything to say. I paint, you look at my painting, you get into it, and you take what you need to take from it. That's all I have to say.
The whole generation is inspired by you.
What?
The whole generation is inspired by you. So what's your opinion?
I don't know that.
Yes. But for me, Ismet it counts as one of the very, very important artists of our times, of of last century and this century, because you've crossed two centuries. You've been painting since the 1960s. There you go.
Yeah, but still.
And his work represents a very, I think Ismet's work represents a very diversion, a break from a certain particular type of art, which was maybe more classical. And I think Ismet's work kind of pushed Mauritian art towards, shall we say, modernity and beyond.
Yes, modernity.
There you go. So, as any artist, I think Ismet is often misunderstood
Yes.
by those who do not want to understand. But I am glad to count him as a friend, because we've known each other
For quite some time now.
For quite some
That's
time.
great,
So,
great.
And I dare say, maybe Ismet, you've been a big inspiration in my own evolution. as an
Thank
artist.
you.
To many. But I'm done talking. I think you should talk to Ismet, because
No, it's all right. I've said that, done my part.
And, you know, sometimes we really want to talk, but if you don't have words, we can still keep recording.
Yes, of course, of course. There's so much to say, and at the same time, there's not so much to say. Art should be very complicated to do, but accessible to everyone.
That's
So
very
you
important.
don't have to explain and
No. But you know, sometimes
You have-
for upcoming generations, it's very important to record you,
Yes,
so we
you-
can
you
keep
give-
record.
As an artist, you give some guidelines, but you don't explain things. And for the history part, friends like Utam will talk for me.
Okay.
yes, I am very privileged to have recorded quite a few exhibitions
Yes.
by Mr. Ganti. So thankfully I've been a contributor to.
Yes, we've been partners.
We've been partners, yeah, through history and in crime.
Thank you so much, both of you.
Thank you.
See
I
you.
just hope you can make